There's this notion circulating around the internet that somehow longer content is better in all cases, and people get fixated on the idea that if you make something longer about the same topic, that it is actually better. And I would summarily dismiss that as being false. Sure, there are topics that you need to use more space and more words in order to explain because the topic is complex and nuanced, but there are lots of cases where longer simply just means more filler about the topic and doesn't actually add real value or real insight about whatever is being covered. I can cite in my own case, having written some articles for Popular Science where I was given a very short 300-word count for some tech topics. I was actually really concerned that I wouldn't be able to effectively cover the topic in that short amount of space. And what I found was, by writing and rewriting a few times, I actually got to the point where I made the topic far more clear by being forced into the constraints of the word count rather than being allowed to freely write as much as I wanted. And even after I had shortened things up, in many cases, the editor actually made it even better after that. So that's just one example from my world. On the flip side, there are all of these brain candy sites, Upworthy and BuzzFeed come to mind, and even kind of Business Insider with its very bombastic business journalism that often make a topic sound bigger than it is, or they get all caught up in giving you lists and quizzes and things like that that really don't add much value at all, regardless of length. So if you made it longer, it wouldn't actually be better. And reading something else longer instead of taking a quiz or whatever doesn't actually mean that you got something better necessarily, because depending on the topic, it could be equally bad. And so I think rather than focusing on the length of the article as the key to whether it is good or bad, we should focus on whether or not the writer said everything that needed to be said in the minimum amount of space required to say it. And anybody who does that in partnership as a writer with a great editor ultimately becomes a better writer in the process, and it's a better experience for the reader. So let's not focus on length of articles. Let's focus on how much space is required to cover the topic. And if the writer is covering the topic in the minimum amount of space required to cover it effectively, they've done a good job.